Hey, hi everybody. Welcome to another edition of Catchup with Mayo. It's a Q&A, and I do this whenever I can. These days, I'm doing them at about somewhere around 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time, that is, on Sunday mornings, but it's not every Sunday morning necessarily. But for a while, up until at least the end of June, you're going to be getting this time. If you want to participate, if you want to ask questions, want to check in, catch up, that kind of thing, this is the time to be on the lookout. 9 a.m. to between 9 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, and on Sunday. Okay. Now, next Sunday, I will not be here. I will not be doing this next Sunday. Next Sunday is going to be the 22nd. I will not be doing this on Sunday the 22nd. I will be at a record show, actually. Okay, I'm going to be there at the record show. And I will wind up doing it again the following Sunday after that. So I'll be back here the 29th. So I'll skip next Sunday. And the Sunday after, I should be back here. And I see we got Penny Lane. What's going on, Penny Lane? Don't forget, you're in my ears and my eyes. In fact, the song I heard on the radio before I started this in the car was Penny Lane. Hello, Jose. And let's just settle in here. I'm kind of far away from the phone. You know, I'm going to have to move closer because I'm going to want to scroll past. Can't scroll from where I'm sitting. Or I could move this closer to me. All right. So what's going on, folks? Let me know. We got beautiful sunshine here for a change. It's finally getting cold here, you know. I mean, I have no problem with the change in temperatures being warmer in the winter. No problem with that anyway. But yeah, today was the first cold day. It only said it was 31 degrees. And even though it said 31, felt more like, 10 or something out there. It's a cold one. This is winter. This is what you got to contend with. And it is what it is. Yep, happy the sun is out. Absolutely, me too. And I love the sun. Here comes the sun. It's all right, as they say. Makes me feel good. I'm not a gray, overcast kind of fan. I don't know who would be actually, but some people seem to like, for whatever reason, crappy weather. I don't know. Go figure. I'm wearing one of my Christmas Beatles shirts here. I really can't tilt the camera more. You can't really see it. It's got all kinds of Beatles songs on it. To make some of them out. This is one of the gifts I got, Beatle related. So I figured I'd wear that today on a cold day. So everybody, what's on your so-called minds? Let's find out. If anything, we don't have many comments. Now I know this is early. Not everybody is going to be here. It depends where you live. In England, this should be a great time for England, right? Should be like afternoon there, afternoon time in England. Thank you, Penny Lane. I'm glad you like the shirt that I'm wearing. Let's see. Mystery Train, do you know the person in Maine that won the Mega Millions? I wish I did. We have a family in Maine, and it really, really would have been fantastic if it was one of my friends, relatives, family members who had won. Unfortunately, it was not. Hello, Beetle Ed. Good to see you. Beetle Ed. Yeah. I really wish I could win. I mean, well, I could win. I wish I don't know, lottery gods would arrange for me to win. Let's put it that way. So, when I was coming up here, I was listening to the show Breakfast with the Beatles on Q104. And the Ken Dashow, the guy that usually does it, was not there today. We had Ralph Totoro doing the show. And I like when he does the show because he plays a good amount of John Lennon, unlike Ken Dashow. And he started out the show, as he usually does, by playing And Your Bird Can Sing. Ralph Totoro likes to start the show by playing And Your Bird Can Sing. That's a great opening. It reminds me of the Beatles cartoons. It was the opening song to the Beatles cartoons. And he played that song to get us in the mood. And then he says he's going to play Jeff Beck all day. And not for nothing, look, folks, I feel sorry, rest in peace, Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck was a great guitar player. And I know this is going to sound like I'm slighting Jeff Beck. I'm not in any way, shape, or form. But this is Breakfast with the Beatles. Beatles. And a personal thing I can't stand is when people take an opportunity to have other artists, solo or group, leech on to the Beatles in order to get them some time. It's like, look, do your own show for Jeff Beck. I mean, I love Jeff Beck's guitar playing. The thing I'm trying to say is, it's a Beatles show. Now, so he was playing Jeff Beck. Not only Jeff Beck. I mean, he played Penny Lane. He played And Your Bird Can Sing, and he played Sergeant Pepper with a little help from my friends, and he played some Jeff Beck. And he said, I'm going to play Jeff Beck for the whole show off and on. And I'm thinking, what's the connection? The Beatles connection. Well, he said that George Martin produced some Jeff Beck work. Fantastic. I personally am not of the belief that just because the Beatles producer produced another album by somebody else, that therefore we should listen to that. It's a Beatles tie-in. It's a very loose Beatles tie-in. Most people that have their coffee in the morning and are tuning on to Breakfast with the Beatles want to hear the Beatles. That's what they want to hear. So I hope you know where I stand. I'm just looking for something to talk about until the questions and things come up. Hello, Stellar Conquest in the UK. Again, Penny Lane says she agrees. Again, it's not meant to be a dig on Jeff Beck or anything, disrespect. It's just that it's not the place for it. He played a version that Jeff Beck did on guitar of She's a Woman. At least it was Beatles related in that regard. I stopped listening to the show now because I'm here, but I don't know what else he's playing from Jeff Beck for the rest of the show. So that's that. The only thing I want everybody that's here to realize that I'm doing this show, as I said, it will be a lot of Sundays I'll do it. Not every Sunday, but a good amount of Sundays between now and the end of June. And I'll be doing them, as I say, between 9 and 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Sunday mornings. So please know to be here if you're interested in this and if you want to participate, ask questions and such. So, Wink the Man says, George Martin produced America's Sister Golden Hair, and I hear a heavy George Harrison, My Sweet Lord influence on that song. That's true. I would go along with that. But sorry, folks, trying to get the shirt showing a little bit more. I'm not really working out. Well, you know how I feel about it. I'm just one of those people. I don't believe there are some people who collect and listen to anything on the Apple label because the Beatles did Apple, and anything with Apple on it they collect. Good. I'm not saying it's a bad thing for you. I mean, for you, if you like it, that's good. Whatever makes people happy, it doesn't hurt anybody, is fine. But I'm just saying, it's something I don't really understand. Okay. Also, during this, whatever you want to call it, podcast, if at any point my voice should sound tinny or robotic, it usually happens. It can happen around an hour into this, and I hope that doesn't happen today. Let me know, please, if that starts happening. I usually have, I didn't bring them today, of course, I have a pair of earbuds. And for whatever reason, whenever people tell me your voice is starting to get robotic and tinny sounding like that, if I take the earplug and plug it into the phone and then take it right out again, it stops. the audio gets corrected, and I don't really know why. So yeah, there's only so much that I can come up with to say. Well, I'm on an Elvis Presley kick right now. I'm really into Elvis right now. Trying to get a lot of Elvis CDs and things and LPs. The ones I've missed, or never had in the first place. Maybe ones I had that I got rid of in the past. In at least one case or two cases. I'm scheduled to see my friend Anthony tomorrow again already, and we're supposed to get together tomorrow, unless of course Anthony, you know, has something come up that he can't make it. But we're supposed to get together tomorrow tentatively, and that will mean another Anthony video. And we're trying to do, we're always going to do our breakfast routine, but we could try also to go and do something else. I hear Beetle Ed. Yes, indeed, Beetle Ed. We agree on that. Pirate Gamer Boy, hello. Imagine that Elvis CD set you just unboxed as a vinyl set. My God, the size of that. Yeah, exactly. Well, I have all of those. I have all those albums on vinyl, as well. The Elvis set that I did. I did a video just now. I opened a Elvis box set, and it has 60 CDs in it. And it spans Elvis's RCA album collection. During the time Elvis was alive, until he died, After Elvis died, then there were some more things that came out, but this only goes up to that. But anyway, I'm only talking about this because I'm waiting for hopefully more people to come up, more questions. This, as I say, it's tough doing it at this time. It's not the ideal time. A lot of people are still asleep. Life is meant to be lived, people. Get up. You know what I'm not saying you got to get up at 6 a.m. or 6:30. I like to get up ideally, I like to get up at 6:30 a.m. I want to greet the brand new day, as John Lennon sang in Dear Prudence. And I love the mornings. I don't expect everybody to get up at 6:30. Get up by 8 at least, God's sake, Don't sleep in till 11 o'clock, noon. What are you, crazy? Everybody can do what they want, of course, but that's just my opinion. And I guess during a time like this, when there's not much to talk about, not many questions, not many people here yet, I guess the thing to do is that's when I can just recap, which is what I'm trying to do. Good morning to Scott Sondheim. Hello. That's what I'm trying to do, trying to recap whatever it is that's gone on the last week. Let's see. I also, I'm going to try to pick up some more Elvis. Right now, like I say, Elvis is on the brain. I'm going to be getting the Nashville box set, and there are 2 Nashville box sets. Last few years came out. Going to get those. And I know a lot of people here are Beatles people, so to speak. So they probably want to hear more Beatles, and that's fine. I'm willing to talk about the Beatles or anything within reason, as they say. Don't do politics, don't do religion, that kind of thing. So, thank you, Scott. He says, great Elvis box set review and unboxing. Yeah, it was fun. It was really fun to do, and they're going to be fun to listen to those. I know they're going to sound fantastic. Yes, I'm going to be doing another First Time Spins video. That's coming up, too, First Time Spins, when I listen to a record album or a CD that I haven't heard before and give you my opinion on it. I'm going to be making those videos a lot more, I hope. Beetle Ed says, can I have your thoughts on people listening to music of artists only the day they die and not before or after? Well, I don't know about only. I don't know if that happens. Does that really happen much? I mean, I don't know. I certainly believe that when an artist dies, they should be honored and they should play their music in its proper place. You don't. I don't need to hear, Jeff Beck on a Beatles show, that kind of thing, for example. Yeah, definitely believe in that. But when you say only, like only playing it, then I don't know if you mean the radio. Do you mean radio? I don't know. Well, you shouldn't only listen to something when somebody dies, and not before or after. But sometimes people aren't even aware. Younger people, maybe some people are not aware of certain artists, obviously, until they die. Sometimes. See, here's one right here. I just saw the Pirate Gamer Boy says, "I've never actually heard of Jeff Beck before his death." Well, you're young, right, Pirate Gamer Boy? So there you go. Yeah. Beetle says, within the next year, count how many times you hear Jeff Beck's name on YouTube. Yeah, I get that. People die, they pay tribute, they mention it, and then they're forgotten, or they don't really talk about them more. Don't talk about it as much before or since. I get you. Stellar Conquest says that Queen records, the group Queen, the records seem to be a little more poignant after Freddie Mercury's death. Yeah, well, like I said, I've never been a big Queen fan at all. That said, I do like a handful of their big songs. My first one is probably, I think it's called Best Friend. That one. Ooh, You Make Me Live. That one. That's my I think probably maybe my favorite one. I don't know, but I think because of that movie Bohemian Rhapsody, that made a lot of people interested in Queen. You know. Mary's film is poor, to be honest. You mean If These Walls Could Sing? That one? Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, nothing earth-shattering for sure, but it was enjoyable enough for me. McCartney 321, you like? Be like, yeah, me too. Scott says, sadly, a death makes us think of an artist quicker than we would have. Wink Demand says, John and Yoko's Double Fantasy album wasn't doing well before John's death. Do you think the album sales would have eventually picked up if John had lived? I absolutely do. I was just looking into that recently. I think the charts were different then, and there was certainly a lot of great music on the charts at the same time in those years, 1980 and so forth. And it was all competing with each other. The single, Just Like Starting Over, was rising, was on its way up. I believe the single, Just Like Starting Over, definitely would have hit number one regardless. And I think the album would have got higher. Whether it would have been number one, I don't know, if John hadn't been killed. But I definitely think it would have done a lot better. You know, it had only been out like 3 weeks. Yeah, Ruben throws softballs at Paul. Everybody throws softballs at Paul. They don't ask him really the hard edge stuff. He's not going to answer it usually. Rolling Stone says, Joe, do you make CDRs out of your CDs to play in the car or use, etc., etc.? No, but many years ago, someone bought me a CD burner years ago when I was doing that. I made a lot of CDs that I still have, CDRs. Made a lot of CDRs off, those CDs, about people's CDs. I remember borrowing a guy's collection of the 60s. He had 1960 CDs. He must have had like 60 of them or so that I borrowed and copied all the biggies. I still have those. But I don't have any, I don't burn them now, let's put it that way. Zachary Hogan says, I don't recognize the background. Guessing you're not at home. That's correct. I'm in a schoolroom. It's a situation where my girlfriend has a side job that she does on some Sundays. And as a result of that, I drive her here and we're here for a couple of hours. And so it's not every Sunday morning, but a good amount of Sunday mornings. So that's why I'm here. Excuse me, belching. I had breakfast before I started. Howard Stern throws curveballs. Yeah, oh yeah, he's more willing to say stuff. Remember the interview with Paul, a really good interview. He's interviewed Paul many times now, Howard, but I like the first time he met Paul and interviewed him. I think it was 2001. And he asked him a lot of things about Michael Jackson, getting along with Michael Jackson, or what happened with Michael Jackson, and asking him, personal things about sex, and this stuff like that. And Paul was like, "Ooh," it's like that. And I say, John Lennon would have been. I would have loved to see John Lennon on the Howard Stern show. That would have been fair. John would have loved Howard Stern, I think. And as far as Zachary says, Howard Stern is kind of lame now. Not gonna lie, I 100% agree. I started listening to Howard Stern in the 1980s, early 80s, and he was really cutting edge then. And now he's just Howard Stern has become everything that he hated. Everything Howard Stern despised, he's turned into, and he's become very much, I don't know what the term is, I don't want to say too much, but anyway, he just says things that are correct. You wouldn't think he'd be a very PC kind of person, Howard, but he's become that, and it's a joke. He's a joke. I loved Howard Stern in 1984, 85, 86, 87. And into the early 90s. I loved Howard Stern from 1984, till I want to say around 1994. 10 years, 84 to 94. Now he's a joke. Thank you very much, Scott says. Happy health to you and your girlfriend. You're looking great. Thank you, sir. Yeah, I was sick in October 3 months ago, and it's over. Doing much better as a result. Trying to take up from there. Yeah, I hear you, Beetle Ed. Hello, Edward, by the way. Yes, I was thinking of you, Edward Gralla. I was thinking of you. You came to mind. Yeah, I listened to, they had, as I said, Ralph Totoro was on. I thought, oh, fantastic. And he always starts his show off with Anya Bird Can Sing, which is a great lead-in. Great way to open the show. And then he went into playing a lot of Jeff Beck, and I'm like, I talked about that already. It's like, what, the Rolling Stones here says it's going to be a new Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon release this year. That's one I haven't decided whether I'm going to get on vinyl or CD. It might be vinyl for that one, I'm not sure. Hey, L7 Casanova, long time no see, what's up? What kind of record shelf do you use? Do you use any reinforcements with it? Well, you can see I use that, it used to be IKEA, and now it's called Expedit now, those cubes. I don't use any reinforcement. You're supposed to bolt those, if you see them in my videos on the side of me, those cubes. You're supposed to bolt them to the wall. I didn't do that. And it's fine, But, yep, that's what I use right now. Joe, you still managed to make a rant video from the hospital. I think you took it down. It was funny. Yeah, I took it. I made a couple of hospital videos when I was in there. I took them down only because I didn't want to really be reminded of that stuff. That's the only reason. Zachary says, I saw your Elvis CD collection video. How do those CDs sound? I haven't played the CDs yet, but I did talk. You mentioned Ed of the King's Court. I've talked to Ed just yesterday. I talked to him, and he says they sound great. And he says, once you listen to those, you're not going to want to hear the vinyl anymore. I could believe that maybe. But those are going to be good for car rides and things. Good morning, Sam St. John. Yes, he said, good to see you in the chat last night on Larry's channel. Hopefully, next time you'll be able to hop on. Yes, Sam. Had to step out. I would love that. Thank you very much. Yeah, Larry, Canadian Stud Muffin. Hey, Larry. He had a live chat, and I commented in there, but they asked me to come on, but I had to go. So, thank you, Beetle Ed. Good morning, Jerome. There's no cough button here, no mute button, I don't believe. Yeah, usually there's a cough button, but there's not one here. I'm reading your comments. Not everything do I comment on, but how do I think Elvis Presley would have done in the '80s? That's hard to say. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think Elvis's style sounded very much like what you'd hear in the '80s. I just don't. I can't imagine him doing stuff like Madness, Our House, or maybe our house in the middle of the street. Our house was a castle hero. Sweet dreams are made of this, baby. Maybe, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? The Shadow knows. That's who knows. The Shadow. Hello, Henry. What's going on? Yes, John Marino says Ringo Starr was great with Howard Stern too. Love it. Love it. It's great because Ringo's always Ringo, and it's great, especially again the first time in 1998 when Ringo was first on Howard Stern. It was great. Howard Stern asking him, "Did you ever have two chicks at once?" uh, you know, stuff like that. Him saying, "I'd love to bleep your wife, Ringo," and he's like, "Oh, Howard, you bastard!" And they're getting into it. I mean, it's just the kind of thing you don't usually hear said, and I thought Ringo handled it well. Zachary says, "I'm of the younger crowd, and I find that no matter what, vinyl, as long as it's pressed properly, sounds and looks. I guess you mean it looks far than CD. You mean better." But I think they will always be better. Streaming is boring. Yeah, well, it's funny. I don't know. I mean, I don't think new vinyl. I mean, a lot of the new vinyl I hear pressed today does not sound very good, in my opinion. Old vinyl from the '50s, '60s, and '70s, and even some '80s. Old vinyl, the vinyl from the '50s to the '80s sounded pretty good. So I would go along with that to a degree. Uh, Edward says, I question Ringo doesn't have much of a choice of working sometimes with Paul since he is on the only one left. But doesn't he think Paul is too controlling? I don't think so anymore. Anyway, I don't think so. I think it was mostly George and John and George, who felt more like Paul was a little too controlling, I think. I don't think Ringo really felt that too much. I don't think. And certainly, if he did, any time in the past, certainly not in recent times, I don't think Ringo feels that about Paul. I was listening, just taking a moment to listen because I hear this room that I'm in. Sometimes people come in here for meetings and they occupy this room sometimes. So on Sunday, so I hope I don't get people crashing the party, so to speak. Uh, Zachary is mentioning how Universal and Warner Bros. Increasing the price of vinyl. Yeah, vinyl's too damn expensive. It's ridiculous. You know, it just is. That's it. New vinyl. It's too ridiculous. There's certain titles I do buy, but not a lot. Yeah, Henry. There's a lot of things. Yeah, talking with Paul, Howard talking with Paul. Paul said he wanted it to be all the guys, but couldn't bring himself to tell John to keep Yoko out of the studio. Yeah, well, they all. I mean, I look. Even though I defend Yoko, and I'm defending John these days, as you know, I have to, unfortunately. It's crazy. But the thing is, I do think it was wrong of John and Yoko for Yoko to be in the studio. I do think it was wrong. And, it was not the place for Yoko to be sitting in the studio. But I accept it. And eventually, because John loved her and because it was either his way or the highway, that's the only condition by which he was going to be in the group. So, I think the Beatles came to have to accept it too. Have you ever heard the Beatles being interviewed and being asked about Pete suing them? Yeah, there's a couple, well, at least one time that I remember. There's one time where he said something like, Pete Best, is it true that Pete Best has a lawsuit? And John says, I think he's had a few, but we don't bother with those. Or something like that. I remember that in an interview. Yeah, I think that's what you said. John dismisses it out of hand, yes. Yeah, and that's true. That's another thing. Linda McCartney, Linda Eastman at the time, right? Linda Eastman was in the studio too, but of course she was not in as much as Yoko was. Obviously, I am just saying. And we saw there was a scene where George Harrison had Patty Boyd even came in. Patty Harrison, I should say. I gotta get the name of Patty Harrison came in a little bit too. And I know it's not as much as Yoko. I'm not trying to say it. I mean, it's night and day the difference. But as a technicality, we'll mention it. And also, he had the Hare Krishnas in there too. You know. But my feeling is again, this is six. Is it 60 years ago yet? Not 60 yet. But it's almost 60 years ago. Enough. Forget it. It happened. It's over. It's 60 years ago. As far as complaining about Yoko being in the studio. Good morning, Anthony. Yeah, well, there's a video. There's a video of Yoko jamming, and it looks to me like they would jam into it. Paul's trying to get feedback with his guitar and with the speaker while Yoko's wailing. So let's see. Right, you have to grow up. If people are still not accepting Yoko as John's life, number one, they need to grow up, and in that regard, you know, in that regard, you need to grow up, and also the fact they don't respect John, and that's it, because John said anyone who's ever, had any interest in me as a solo artist or even as a member of the Beatles has absolutely misunderstood everything I've ever said if they can't see why I'm with Yoko. And if you don't get it, then you don't know who John was and you don't know what he needed. He needed a strong woman like that and an artistic woman that would challenge his artistic talents himself and who was more adventurous and stuff and who was also a strong kind of woman who could be like a mother figure to him. He got that with Yoko. Accept it, embrace it, love it. I'm sorry that your precious Beatles was affected by that. You got to grow up, especially 60 years later. Yeah, John Marino says, funny how Paul and Ringo's stories differ on the story of Ringo getting thrown out of Paul's house. Yes. And not only that, Ringo once said, I think he once said, Ringo, that never happened. In fairly recent years, Ringo said that didn't happen or something. I heard him. I mean, I hear people coming in. I'm going to have to use this room. I hope not. Watch Paul in New York for his 50th. It's quite good. Big, Big Boy Pickering. I don't remember a version of All My Lovin'. I mean, the one in that, I don't know, in that, whatever it is, whatever moment you're talking about. Yes, yes. I'm reading comments. I just don't have to always have something to say. Well, Fester's uncle, that line you're saying, when John said that, he didn't mean that. He was being outrageous, you know, because the press was saying, Time magazine had an article saying that Norwegian Wood was about a lesbian and Day Tripper was about a prostitute. So John Lennon just said that in response as a flippant thing. Oh yeah, Eleanor Rigby's about that, you know. So he didn't really mean that. Yeah, it's true. Paul tells us how much he wrote all of John's songs in Paul's favor. Well, he hasn't said anything about I Am the Walrus or Nowhere Man yet. Those are two songs I don't believe Paul's ever claimed, at least partially, as his. You know, and like I said, it's really ridiculous because he was quiet on it for so many years. He didn't say anything. And now in recent decades, he's like, oh, yeah, I had a part in that. And I wrote some of that. I did this. It's like, you know what? Let John have the songs that we associate with John. You know, let him have those. Why not? I mean, it's crazy. And John's not here to say, oh, well, I actually wrote part of yesterday or I did this. And George Harrison has been noted as saying, he hasn't said how George had said, I haven't, I could get into that myself. I don't go around saying how I wrote two lines of Eleanor Rigby. He said, so, but I could, and stuff like that. So you want to be trivial and you want to like really boost your legacy up and really make everybody know I'm the man. That's another thing. That's an ego thing, I think. Well, I don't think, Anthony, that just because some people feel that Yoko shouldn't have been in the studio means that people are hating on women. That doesn't mean that's ridiculous, okay, in my opinion, because it's just a matter of disrupting the flow. It's not that she's a woman. What if it had been, you have, I don't know, you don't really even see that they have any of their male friends hanging around there all the time. It's not, I don't think it's so much a feminine thing. I just think in general the Beatles just want to have the four of them working. Sam St. John asked me, what is my process for picking which albums to purge? Is it based on last time listens, favorite artists, etc.? Good question. And the only way I can describe it is it's kind of like it's my personal subjective thing, yeah, and it's how it fits me at the moment. I don't know. I go through something and I decide like a lot of 1980s stuff, for example. I'm happy with on CD. Um, so even I'll use the 60s as an example. I was going through my albums and I saw an album by Gary Puckett and the Union Gap, greatest hits in vinyl. I'm going to get rid of it because I like some Gary Puckett songs. I'm not happy on a CD with that. I'm trying to consolidate as much space to CDs, smaller CDs as I can. So something like that I'd be happy with. A lot of them, Jay and the Americans. I don't need a Jay and the Americans vinyl. I'll take a CD. There's no real science to it or steps that I take. Men at Work. I have two Men at Work vinyl albums. One of them is Business as Usual. The other one is Cargo. For me personally, I just think I'll be happy with one CD, Best of Men at Work. It depends. One more example. I was going through my vinyl and I saw Gary Lewis and the Playboys. I have two or three albums by Gary Lewis and the Playboys, and I'd be happy to have the best of on a CD. Then there are other times, again, totally personal for whatever reason, where I just feel I want the vinyl. I don't know, and I'll give you an example: the Swinging Blue Jeans. I have an album with the Hippie Hippie Shake on it by the Swinging Blue Jeans on vinyl, and it's a cool album, and I want to have that. I want to keep that vinyl. It's hard to explain why. It just has to hit me a certain way. Henry says, I disagree when people say Yoko broke up the Beatles. However, I also disagree, he says, with Paul, when Paul says John broke up the Beatles. Well, I got a lot to say about that. Well, first of all, people may be surprised to hear me say Yoko was partly responsible. Part of the Beatles breakup was a whole bunch of things. They were getting older, they were growing up, they had families, girlfriends, wives, and stuff, and the business got tough. Alan Klein and came in. There were business problems. There were disagreements with business. You had George Harrison wanting more time on the albums and stuff, and he felt Paul was getting too controlling, so personality conflict. There's a whole bunch of reasons why. Brian Epstein, their manager, wasn't there anymore. He had died, and they didn't have a managerial direction to help to guide them. But also, John Lennon falling in love with Yoko and getting less interested in the Beatles was a part of it. So when they say Yoko was not solely responsible, but it was a part of it. Okay, as far as the other thing, when you say you disagree, Henry, with Paul McCartney when he says John broke up the Beatles, well, John did. He really did break up the Beatles in a sense, because he came in and said, I want a divorce, kind of thing, or whatever. It's like he told Paul, I think you're daft. I'm leaving the group, and all this. And that, to Paul's mind, that was the beginning of the end. Now, Paul was the one who kind of made it official. He's the one that went out and told the press, and he didn't. And I know now, I'm learning more and more. Actually, technically, Paul did not say, "I'm quitting. The Beatles are over. The Beatles are done, for sure, 100%." But it was more like we're not. They're uncertain right now, and I'm kind of doing my own thing. So I get that. But what I do think is that it's interesting that today, like on the Howard Stern show, now Paul wants people to know, it wasn't me. I wasn't the bad guy. I didn't break up the Beatles. It was John. John. Howard Stern says, do you know who? People still don't know who broke the Beatles. And then Paul goes, I know who. And Howard says, who? John. Now he's willing to let John take the blame because the Beatles, the Beatles, Get Back is so popular, and the Beatles are legendary. The Beatles are like Beethoven and everything. So now Paul doesn't really want to take the blame, too much responsibility for it. So. And, Beetlehead says historians know more about the Beatles than the Beatles themselves. I agree. Edward says, did you ever hear a story that John and Yoko weren't really as in love with each other as it seems, and it was more or less an act? Well, first of all, I believe that John and Yoko had a lot of problems. And why do I believe that? Because they told you they had a lot of problems. First of all, we know that John and Yoko separated. Basically Yoko said, I need to be alone, get out, and kicked John out. Then when they came back for Double Fantasy, the Double Fantasy album, if you listen, has problems on there. Yoko has a song called I'm Moving On. She says, I'm moving on. It's getting phony. We're getting phony. We're going to move on, and John sings about, I'm losing you, and I can't even get you on the telephone and all this. And then in the song Starting Over, John is basically saying that they're having problems. He's saying it's been so long since we took the time. Let's get back together. Let's take a trip. Let's be together like we used to in the early days. It'll be like starting all over again. Come on, let's do rekindle this. So what I have a problem with is I have a problem with people thinking that John and Yoko said they were perfect. That's the problem I have. Where did this myth ever come from that John and Yoko perpetuated a perfect, constant Romeo and Juliet, everything's A-OK all the time relationship? They didn't. And Fred Seaman is big on that. Fred Seaman says, double fantasy was a lie. What lie? Fred Seaman, did you ever actually listen to the freaking album? If you listen to the album, you will hear on there that even they're saying they're having marital problems. They're not saying everything's 100% all the time. John is trying to rekindle it. Anyway, it's incredible, isn't it? Hello, Thomas Jean. I don't know what you're talking about there. I don't know. Oh, I see. Maybe. Okay. Reading comments there. Got a lot of catching up to do. Thomas Jean wants to know, is Connie Francis, I have a huge Connie Francis collection. Is she leaving my collection, the vinyl? Right now, the answer is no. But I'll see how I feel as I get into this more. But right now, no. A lot of good comments here, a lot of good observations. Get the glasses put up there. Okay. Good morning to Mike Sweeney. Not much I can say. Good points here. Okay. Caleb, good morning. He says, would you recommend the Wings Band on the Run 25th anniversary CD set? Yeah, I would. Why not? It's got good stuff on it. Interviews and Dustin Hoffman, isn't Dustin Hoffman on there? I think so. I haven't listened to it in a long time. I have it. Or I used to have it. Had Paul known they could disband for a while, do their own thing, and come back, do you think that would have worked? I think it would have worked. I think they would have been able to record separately on their own, make individual albums, and come back. I think that could have worked, but that's up to them. Yeah, Westfield 90 says the line from I'm Losing You with John says, I know I hurt you then, but do you still have to, that was way back when, do you still have to carry that cross? Drop it. It's a perfect example. Exactly. So I don't know what Fred Seaman and other people are hearing or thinking. And I remember one of John's last interviews where he says, this relationship with Yoko and me is very, very hard to maintain. He says it's like a plant. You have to water it, keep the flies off, nurture it, or it'll die. It's not easy. It's hard to work on this relationship. So with this myth that everybody thinks John and Yoko tried to act like they were happy all the time, I don't get it. That's an old urban legend. Okay, back bacon and beer, talking about once upon a long ago and so forth. Yes, Fred Seaman stole John's personal stuff. Yes, convicted felon. Do I think John and Yoko would have divorced in the 1980s? And do you think his relationship with Sean would have been strained the same way as Julian was strained? I don't know. I think by that time John had grown up a lot as a father. I think he was going to continue to be a good dad to Sean no matter what. And he was becoming a very good dad in retrospect with Julian. He was rekindling and making up to Julian the time that he couldn't spend with Julian because he was too busy changing the world and trying, going around and globetrotting with the Beatles and writing, a couple albums a year. Do you wait until you get a CD before you get rid of the album? I used to do that, and definitely when the CDs first came out, when I was a real CD fanatic in the 1980s, when I started buying CDs, I did that for sure. Caleb says, I meant to ask you the other night, how did that photo of you and Yoko come about? Well, I was with a friend and we just decided, why don't we try to meet Yoko? Let's go to the Dakota. And we went to the Dakota and Yoko was home and we just were lucky that she came out and there was fans there. She couldn't have been sweeter, couldn't have been nicer. She posed for photos with everybody, signed autographs for everybody. Excuse me. We did that 2 days in a row. We did it one day, and then for some reason, we decided to come back. One day we got photos, one day we got autographs. So that's how we did it. We just got lucky. Henry asks, is it true that Yoko got John into heroin, or was that John doing it on his own without any influence? The way I feel about the heroin thing is everybody says Yoko got John into heroin. First of all, I don't know if that's true. I'll assume it is. I'm not trying to protect Yoko. Okay, if it's true, it's true. However, John Lennon was a absolutely compulsive type when it came to drugs, and he tried everything. He was on pep pills, Preludin, what was it? Preludin in Hamburg. He was eager with marijuana. He was eager with acid, LSD. He said I must have had like 1,000 trips. He ate it all the time. John was that kind of personality. He would have gotten into heroin with or without Yoko, as far as I'm concerned. So first of all, I don't know 100% sure that Yoko introduced him to it, but I'll accept it. I'll accept that she did. I also accept two things. Number one, that John would have got into it most likely anyway. Heroin's stupid, it's dangerous, it's ridiculous. All drugs are stupid. I don't condone any drugs. I don't have taken drugs, and I think it's stupid and weak, and suicidal. And heroin's the worst. But John, according to John, we never injected it. He said we sniffed a little. So he says they sniffed a little heroin now and then, never injected it with needles. And John kicked the heroin. He kicked the heroin, wrote a song about it, cold turkey, and this and that. And there you go. So it was, I don't condone it, but it was a very minor period in his life where he did it a lot. Now people say John was doing heroin later in life. I don't believe that. I just don't believe it. Sorry, folks, the glasses. I can see better read through the bottom of the glasses. Yeah, good points again. Oh, hello. You doing something in here by any chance, or are you going to be in here or anything?
No, I just checked the heat.
Oh, okay.
Too warm for you?
I'm perfect. I'm doing a live thing. That's why I don't mind me.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Henry said, do you think John would have liked Michael Jackson since he was the biggest musician during the 80s and 90s? I don't know how he felt about Michael Jackson, or would he have liked it, Beatle Ed, the thing about Julian, again, my feelings on Julian are tough because you say here, the fact that Julian hadn't gotten equal share in Lennon's estate at Sean is disgusting. It's disgusting, but can we get past it? The thing that gets me is, I don't condone that. I don't understand John's thinking with that. I don't understand how that worked out. But the point of the matter is that, as far as I'm concerned, as far as I know, Julian never wanted for anything. Julian never had to work washing dishes 9 to 5 or sweeping floors. Never had to work in a warehouse. It seems to me like Julian always had some money. Okay, right? Number one, and I like Julian. I don't know Julian personally, but from what I can see, how could you not like the guy? He seems like a very likable guy from what we see, and we could have a great time hanging out. But I don't understand everybody being so defensive of Julian all the time, as if because he's a nice guy and because seems like a sweet kind of guy, and because he was the first Beatles child, and because he was that sweet little boy that Paul wrote about in Hey Jude, the Beatles classic. Everybody gets so like protective of him all the time. I don't understand that. The man is going to be 60 years old this year. 60 years old he's going to be in April. Hopefully, I think he's doing better coming to terms with it, and he should. I mean, that, really, we all have hard blows in life, man. I was a child of divorce. My father was gone. You know, I, I don't go, worrying about it. My father didn't leave me a ton of money or anything. Well, my father wasn't rich anyway, but my father couldn't wait. I'm fine. I understand it. When I was 21 or whatever it was, he made a phone call to my stepfather, and my mother. He couldn't wait to, stop paying. And I understand it. I accept it. If I was in his shoes, and I wasn't seeing my son, and I didn't grow up with my son and everything, I probably would feel the same way. I can't wait. I know how it is to be living on a fixed income. And need to get rid of as much excess bills and things. Anyway, that's what I'm saying. Just because it's John Lennon, that's another thing. He's John Lennon, the Beatles. So John, they try to make John superhuman. They expect more from John than the average person. Now, James Farley says, John said drugs win hands down. John said a lot of stupid things, and he said that, yes, I know. He was out of his mind. What an idiot. People say I don't criticize John. John was a freaking idiot to say if it's a choice between this or that, drugs win hands down. What an idiot. There's plenty of other times I could point to with you, though, James Farley, where he did interviews where he said, why do we need these things? There's nothing like being straight. I got an interview later on where he says, I've been through the drug scene, man. He says, and there's nothing like being straight. He said that too. So what does it mean? It means John's just being John, in the moment. Let's see. What other questions we got here? Okay. Beatles Attachment. What's his latest album called? Yeah. It's called Jude. I know. The new album Jude, as we know. It says Julian wants to escape the Beatles attachment. Yet what is his new album called? It's funny stuff. And this thing too about Yoko keeping Julian out of the picture. That's another thing that's a lot of nonsense. Okay, I've come across many photos of Julian with Yoko and John, and she's got his arm around him, and I've seen pictures of them in the '60s together and the '70s. Julian, 1979, 1971, 1960s. As far as keeping him out of this, I think that's also exaggerated a bit, to tell you the truth. Yeah, it's my feeling. Sorry, hold on a minute. I just want to do something. All right. Henry says, do you think Julian is resentful because Sean was loved and was given more attention by John? I do think John loved them equally, though. John did love them equally, and I'm trying to tell you. I understand, though, that later on in life, John became more mature. Don't forget, John was murdered when he was only 40. Now, when you're a kid, you think 40 is really old. You think, 40 is old. When you're like a teenager, you think 40 is really old. It's not. Not. And John took a lot of time to mature, and in the process, he was getting better with Julian. And they had a much better relationship. And I believe had John lived, they would have had a fantastic relationship. But the guy made some mistakes, as many fathers do. Just because he's John Lennon doesn't mean he's immune to making mistakes, or that he's not supposed to make any mistakes. you know. And he made them up the best he could. But as far as the thing about him loving more, John said, well, the different. Well, I don't want to get into that part. Something he said in the Playboy interview, about Julian coming out of a whiskey bottle. It was an accidental pregnancy, whereas Yoko and John planned Sean. That's a that's a rough thing to say, but I think that it was probably some true high and elation for John, the fact that he and Yoko Ono, this is their child. John and Yoko, their child. I think that's a part of it. But I don't think, from everything I've seen, Julian really loves Sean, and Sean loves Julian. They are great brothers. They are really, really close. And I think Julian loves Sean with all his heart, and you can tell. He doesn't harbor any resentment against Sean anyway, that's for sure. Exactly. Henry says people think that John was still doing drugs later in life because he was way too skinny in 1980, but that was from a strict diet. By all accounts, John was on a very strict diet, macrobiotic. He didn't like eating sugar. You can see pictures of me, folks. Back in the day, 30 years ago or more, I was like getting rid of all sugar. And if you see some photos, you can see them right on the banner where I am on my thing. And some of them I was pretty skinny. So, sometimes too skinny. But yeah, John went overboard like he does with everything. That's what Paul's even said, that John always goes overboard. So he went overboard on the health thing too, the eating thing. So, Scott Sinem asked, what year did that Elvis box set come out? Somebody tell. I want to say 2017. Does anybody know for sure that Elvis RCA complete albums box that I got? What year that comes out? Right. Okay. Yeah, but in John's defense, when he said, Julian came out of a whiskey bottle, I know what he was trying to say, but he also said, like me, let me say that again. Like me, Julian came from a whiskey bottle. So he put himself in there as well, at least. Being honest. Hey, look, was it the best way of saying it? No. No. It wasn't very tactful. That's why John's John. The harder edge. What can I say? There's rumors that John was bulimic. I have no idea about that. I don't believe that either. Just some of that tabloid nonsense. Like I say, the same kind of stuff that's going to happen to Paul McCartney when he's gone. Get ready, folks, because when Paul's gone, there's going to be a lot of tell-all books, and a lot of it's going to be garbage. It's not true. All right. Well, we still got a lot of time left here. Let's keep on going, folks. This is really a good talk today. Cheers. All right. Take a little breather for a moment. So, what's going on, folks? Caught up a little bit. Yeah, probably 90%, 80% of what's said about the Beatles is utter nonsense. Right. Well, there's that too. Yeah, he said about John had a secret stash of chocolates. Said not to tell him. But then again, there's accounts that John was fanatical about not eating sugar, at that time. That's true. A few people have said that was observations they had of John then. But like anybody else, he probably cheated and binged now and then. Well, chocolates, sure. Yes, I heard that story. Henry says, "Did you ever hear that story of Julian having fun as a child and John saying, 'I hate the way you laugh'?" Yeah, Cynthia told that story. I believe it was Cynthia, and said, "To this day, Julian doesn't laugh, doesn't like to laugh because of that." Look, that's not a nice thing. But the whole thing I'm trying to say is, I have a memory of my dad. I have a memory, and let me give you an example. I'll share this with you because I'm an open book like John. Okay, when I was a child, I like to collect. I like to play records. I had a little record player, and I played my little 45s. I don't have really a lot of bad memories, but I know one time, my father, who was a drinker and would get drunk once in a while, I I must have. He was in a bad mood, and I must have said something. I was laughing. I know I was joking around too. I was making a joke. I don't remember what I said, but I remember my father saying to me, "What? What?" And he grabbed the 45 RPM out and flung it across the house. It went like 2 rooms across the house, dining room, living room. And I remember that. Am I traumatized by it? No. I realized he was a human being. Well, I don't think he was drunk on that occasion. He did get drunk, but I don't think he drank on that occasion. But however, he's got I have a temper. I don't have children. I don't know if I'd ever do that. But the thing is, I hear people upstairs yelling all the time at the kids and stuff. Yeah, one kid upstairs I hear yelling at the kid. John Lennon was a human being. That's all I can tell you. It doesn't mean that what he did was good, but I don't know if that really happened. But if Cynthia said that happened, that he once told her, "I hate that laugh, yeah, laugh of yours," stop, don't laugh, or something like that. It's terrible. It's terrible, but I accept these things, and like we said, you know, um, if John had been alive, would he have disputed that? If John hadn't been murdered and he was alive, would he have said that never happened? I don't know what she's or would he have disputed it? Same thing's going to happen to Paul, and to a lesser extent, well, Ringo maybe, but yeah, when people are not here to defend themselves, a lot of stuff comes up. Thank you, James Farley. Says I look great. Great. It's going to get better and better all the time. Thank you. Um, Same with Elvis, really. I see so many stories posted online by people who claim to have known him. How do we know what's true and what's not? Yeah, well, let's see. Um, and that's it. Everyone makes mistakes. Why do they expect the Beatles to be perfect? You know, But what's getting me down lately, as I've said many times, is these days, especially with the internet, everybody wants to pile on the hate for John and the bad things about John, and they're completely ignoring the good things and the good things he did, and the charitable things he did, and how he could be very loving and nice in other ways to other people. It's not just always about the negative when it comes to him. That's all. Okay. Do you think Heather Mills will talk badly about Paul when Paul passes? I don't know. She's more likely to do it when he passes than when he's here, that's for sure. Will she do it? I don't know. Beetle says Cynthia Lennon was a doormat. She came back and didn't go mad when John and Yoko were there together. I don't understand Cynthia Lennon. I don't understand her. Cynthia seemed like a nice, innocent woman. What's not to like? But in my opinion, from what I can see, she just seemed like kind of dull, kind of dull. Even when she went along to America in '64, she seemed dull. Even when she went along with the Maharishi, even when she, went, 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 along with John. She seemed dull. and she didn't stimulate John in any way. And I don't understand. At least give John a little bit of credit that he married her anyway, because obviously that's a good thing that John did, right? You know, he was going to be a father, so he married the woman. He didn't have to. He didn't have to do that, but he married her because she was impregnated. You know, she was pregnant with his child. Now, they couldn't have predicted how huge the Beatles would have been. Beatles were huge, phenomenal. You know, you could not possibly be home all the time and completely devoted to your son under such conditions. Nobody could under those conditions. Um, but yeah, I don't understand too with Cynthia Lennon. Watch why if John was so bad, if John was such a bad person, why would Cynthia like I don't know put herself in that situation? Why would she be so attracted to John? Some people are attracted. You know, the old thing that says some women are attracted to the bad boys. You know, I don't get it. You know, she had no business being with John, really. You know, John was not really the person for her. You know, she said he wasn't my type. And by the way, Cynthia had been got divorced more than once too. That's something to keep in mind too. You know, she got divorced more than once. So I believe talking about John Twist. You know, Twist. But anyway, but people give her the benefit of the doubt because she was quiet. She didn't say anything. She wasn't intrusive. She didn't upset the apple cart. You know, as John said, you know, she was my white Anglo-Saxon wife. So people liked that. They accepted that, you know. You know. Okay. Yeah, Westfield 90 says it's classy that Jane Asher hasn't cashed in telling secrets of Paul. She knows more about him than probably anybody does. Yeah. Yeah. Do I do a P.O. box? No. Exactly. Anthony says here John was always there to take a picture or two or sign autographs for the fans during his lifetime. Those were nice thoughts to remember about John when he was. I got a lot of pictures. I find them online. There's a Facebook page or something I've seen called "The Love of John Lennon" or something like that. And every day it seems there's pictures of him signing autographs for people. Usually, you know, in his solo career times. And yeah, so yeah, I do like a few songs by Queen. I was talking about it earlier. Yeah. Okay, folks, what's going on? No, I do not like The Rock. No, I do not. Sorry. So we got a little bit of a lull here. It's okay to take a rest. Ugh, chair I'm sitting in is uncomfortable. Yeah, Zachary says, I wish I would have bought the Beatles mono box set. It's 4 times the price. I wish I would have saved it. I bought it and sold it at a time when I needed extra cash. That's one of the things that was the most expendable. I figured I'll just get all the original albums from the UK. Oh, excuse me, folks. Do I like James Brown's music? Some of it, yeah. Nicholas Sneeden asks. I have not heard of that. Moonbeam Skies wants to know if I've heard of Di Fara Pizza in Brooklyn. No, I don't go to Brooklyn very often. What's the next Elvis box set you're getting? Well, I want to get the Jungle Room sessions and I want to get the two Nashville boxes. Those are the ones I'm really, right now, interested in. Did I like the new Revolver box? Well, I did a couple of videos on it, and then after thinking about it somewhat, I decided I prefer the original mix of the 2009 CD or any of the old mixes. I prefer to it. Sorry. I know I'm really alone in that. Okay. I say alone, but not really. I've heard people say they like the old one better. You know, there were some things I like better about the new one, but mostly I've come to the conclusion I like the old one. You ask if I like the 2017 Sergeant Pepper's remaster. Well, I haven't listened to it in a while, but I do remember thinking that one I did like. I thought it gave more of a rock feeling, a heavier rock feeling to a lot of the tracks. So, yeah, Eric, I have not been to Graceland. I've never been to Graceland. Never been to Liverpool either. David Fishman asked me, "Am I going to Beatle Fest this year?" Yes, at least I plan to. Not foreseeing any problems. Hopefully, nothing will go wrong. There'll be an issue. But right now, I plan. It's coming up fast. It's going to be March 31st, the weekend of March 31st into April 1st and April 2nd. I plan to be there, and I plan to also be on a panel or two as a guest, hopefully. So I hope people are going to be there. I hope people will come there and say hi if they're there. Any news on Ringo's 50th for the Ringo self-titled album? No news yet, nothing at all. But somebody has said, somebody in the inside has said it's going to happen, but it's not official yet. Do I think I will read the McCartney book? Yeah, I do. I've read some of it already. Any chance of me getting to the Netherlands? I seriously doubt it. At this point in life, I'm probably not. Do I think Mark Lewison will ever deliver Volume 2? It's been the biggest disappointment that he hasn't done it. I got to tell you, I really like Mark Lewison a lot. I like him personally, his personality, and I like his work. And I love his first book, Tune In. I got to tell you now, it's getting a little ridiculous. Mark, if you're out there, Mark's going to be at the Beatle Fest. Mark Lewison. Hopefully I'll be able to say hello. But it's really, at this point, I keep saying that it's been so long now that since the part one, he might as well just wait to 2024. And the reason I say that is the next book, part two, will have 1964 in it. And what better time to time the book at the earliest to go along with the 60th anniversary of 1964. That'll be a perfect time to put his second book out. But it seems like he's involved in all these other things. Hey, I'm not telling Mark Lewison how to live his life and what he should be doing. But from a fan's point of view, he seems to be taking all this time involved in other things when he could be writing the book. Yeah, the Beatles' White Album does showcase the Beatles as individuals and all their powers. Yes. Am I thinking about visiting Chicago? Anthony, I always say that I want to go to Chicago Beatle Fest, but it won't be this year. Don't know when it's going to be. I wonder if I could swing next year. I don't know. Next year, at least it would be the anniversary, 60th anniversary, maybe. I did not see the new movie Glass Onion. Yeah, the next fest is March 31st, April 1st, and April 2nd. What's my favorite song by the Beatles? It's impossible to pick a favorite song, but when people ask me, I say She Loves You. And not just because when I was a 3-year-old kid, I loved She Loves You. And, I love the early Beatles and She Loves You, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's such a powerful single. And it still always excites you. If you're lucky enough to hear it on the radio, you hear the drums, boom, boom, it starts right away. You're like, oh, you can. It's an energetic roller coaster ride for 2 minutes or however long it is, and yeah, she loves you is it encapsulates everything that was special about Beatlemania and the Beatles in the early years. It's the Beatles at their early peak, at 63 peak. I like it much better than I Want to Hold Your Hand, actually. I'm going to switch chairs now, folks. Hold on a minute, will you? Let me see how I'm going to do this. I want to switch chairs, but how do I do that with... Oh, got a different view there, right? Okay, I'm going to just switch chairs here. Oh, that's better. It's a lot better. Okay, I remember that for the future. If I could only bring one to a desert island, would it be a movie collection or music collection? Probably movie collection, believe it or not. I'd rather bring my movie collection to a desert island than the music, which would also include the Beatles, because I'd bring Help in a Hard Day's Night and Yellow Submarine and all that. So I get Beatles music too. Uh, Average time that you listen to your enormous collection of vinyl, very, very little. And I want to listen more. And the reason I've always said is because I live in an apartment with neighbors upstairs, and you can hear everything. The walls and ceilings are paper thin. And sometimes maybe I'll put the headphones on to listen, but I don't like listening to music with the headphones. I'd rather it be in the room and surrounding the room. So because of that, I don't play vinyl as much as I'd like to. And we have a goal now. My girlfriend and I have talked about it, that we have a target date of when we want to be in a new place, a house, hopefully. And that target date is by the end, by Christmas, say, by Christmas of 2024, we want to be in this place. So hopefully, once I do that, I'm sure I'll be playing a lot more vinyl on a regular basis, louder and everything. Yeah, I got the nice purple Beatles sweatshirt actually, sweatshirt. Mark Lewison, not Martin, Mark. Mark Lewison is not the fifth Beatle, no. George Martin is the fifth Beatle in my book. I do not have any interest in the Rolling Stones mono box on colored vinyl or black vinyl, for that matter. When will Tom Hunyadi make his movie channel? I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it. I hope he sticks with it. He's talked about wanting to do that, and I hope he does. I just hope he does. That's all. Uh, maybe Tom and I could do another movie chat. We try to do one a month, but it's been a while since we did the last one. For those who don't know, I have a movie channel. The movie channel is called Mayo After Dark. So if you're interested in movies, please subscribe to Mayo After Dark. And not only is it movies, but it's also the rant videos when I do the things where I rant about everyday irritants. Try to provide a laugh for people too. That's over there now. The rant videos are on Mayo After Dark. What did George Martin do in his career after the Beatles? Well, he produced other people too. Hello, Lincoln. Just tuning in. How large is your music collection? It's not thousands, no. I don't have them listed. I don't have them chronicled anywhere on Discogs or anything. I think maybe I have close to 1,000 albums. I don't even know if I have 1,000. If I counted them, maybe it'd be more like 800 or 900. I don't know. Maybe 1,000. I don't know. Hey, Peter Boothroyd, the camera quality looks better. I don't know why that is. Well, I don't know. Sometimes I stream. Right now, I'm streaming on YouTube. A lot of times when I'm streaming, you see me streaming on StreamYard. It happens to be a bright day here with the sun out. So, yeah, George Martin did Jeff Beck's Blow by Blow. And how do I know that? Because just this morning on Breakfast with the Beatles, the guy played that. uh, Breakfast with the Beatles, but instead we're going to hear Jeff Beck produced by George Martin. But okay, whatever. Got nothing against Jeff Beck, great guitarist. Okay, what's going on, folks? We're about up to the 90, close to the 90-minute mark. Not yet, but getting close to 90 minutes. I may be here another half hour. So, is there a song that you might like from the Scottish lads, the Bay City Rollers? No, the only thing that I know by them is the song Saturday Night, which was a big hit. I bought it as on a 45 when I was a kid. It's a good song. Um, no, I have not. I don't watch the Paul is Dead crap. I don't. Yes, Kit really does. It is Kit's backyard. She does live videos sometimes from her backyard, and it is big. And sometimes people think she's on George Harrison's estate, but she's not. What are my thoughts on the 2009 remasters versus the Giles Martin remixes? Well, my feelings generally on I don't really care for a lot of the I'm sorry, Giles Martin. I'm sorry, the Giles Martin remixes. I still say what I always say. Some of it I like, and some of it I don't like. Some of the Giles Martin remixes sound very good. Some of them improve a song. Some of them take away from a song, and that's the problem I have with Giles Martin. It's a love hate thing in a way, 50-50. Yes, Henry, that is the intention, and the intention is that this will stay. Yes. Joseph says, at some point, will you consider selling your vinyl records? Well, I am selling them. I've already sold some, and I made videos about that. I have already sold over $200 worth of vinyl records. Zachary, I have to tell you, when it comes to the different versions of like the sound quality, do I like the 2009? Do I like the 2015 mono remaster? All this stuff, it's getting a little crazy. Can I tell you the truth? I like good sound quality, but it's getting a little stupid now, in my opinion. And in fact, recently I was at my record store, and I was at the record store, and a guy put on the Revolver album. But the Revolver album that he put on was the Capitol US album. We're not going to get into this whole thing about how the US Capitol album obviously isn't as good as the British one. But here's the thing. He took the Revolver album out of the dollar bin, and the dollar bin has dollar albums that are like a little scratched, a little scuffy. They're not really that good. And he put it on, and we heard the Revolver album, and every now and then there'd be a few snaps, crackles. Do you know I really enjoyed it? I enjoyed listening to Revolver that day in the store when this guy put it on more than I'd ever enjoyed it in recent years. And this was an old dollar, dirty, not the best quality vinyl copy. And I'm really believing, folks. I mean, I want things to sound good, but it's getting obsessive, and I'm starting to feel that way. It's getting ridiculous. Have you ever purchased any Beatles songs on vinyl or reggae? Have you any reggae in your collection? I do like reggae, but I do like reggae. I find it out, but I don't have a lot of it. But the kind of reggae I have, reggae is other people doing reggae. You know what I mean? Like Ringo doing reggae, or Linda McCartney doing reggae, or something like that. Or but I've heard Bob Marley and stuff, and I do like it. I don't love it, but I like it. Beatles songs you didn't care for at first, but then grew to love. I don't remember ever really hearing Beatles songs that I didn't care for, then loved later. But I will say, the closest thing I can come up with that is that the song "It's All Too Much" by George Harrison is. It used to be my vote for the worst Beatles song, and these days I come to enjoy that a lot more. So I really am enjoy. I enjoy now. It's all too much. Also, excuse me, I was never a big fan of the song "I Want to Tell You," and now I really like "I Want to Tell You." So there's two example of two songs that were never favorites that I'm kind of growing on me more. David says Beatles versus Elvis, which is more say better. Well, let's put it this way. This is going to be my answer. Elvis versus the Beatles. They're both great. There is Elvis. There are the Beatles. Those are the two gods, five gods. And then there's everybody else. I may put Dylan in there too. There's Elvis, Beatles, Dylan. Elvis, Beatles, and Bob Dylan. And then everybody else is below them. That's how I feel about it. Now, Elvis is the greatest single artist who ever lived. Beatles are the greatest group who ever lived. To get into this, who's better, Elvis or the Beatles, it's ridiculous. I've always said that, or I'm starting to say it more and more. A lot of Elvis fans belittle the Beatles, and there's Beatles fans that belittle Elvis and stuff. You can say all kinds of things. Elvis didn't write music, but he didn't have to. He was a great singer, had charisma, great stage presence. And the Beatles, great musicians, or great musicians, adequate musicians. They played their own instruments all the time and wrote songs. And they're different. The style, Elvis's style versus the Beatles style, like apples and oranges. So. Let's see, Elvin, hi. I bought the Elvis box 60 CD set. I wanted to know, didn't Kid Galahad get a soundtrack? I remember Kid Galahad being an EP, I think. I think there's an EP with Elvis with boxing gloves on. But no, didn't get an LP. Farrell McNulty says, I know you're big on Joan Jett and Debbie Harry. Yes, I am. But what about Edie Brickell? Well, I love the album, the first album, Shooting Rubber Bands at the Stars. I bought that album in 89, 1989, and I really liked it. There's a lot of good songs on there. And I never heard the second album that she had. Henry says, I listened to Plastic Ono Band recently. Great album, but thoughts on the last track? You're talking about My Mummy's Dead. I love My Mummy's Dead, and I remember the first time I ever heard the whole album with headphones on, and that was spooky. The thing about it is, it's not really a song. It's not a finished song. It's just a little tag. John just had this little tiny thing that he did, and he tagged it on at the end as an afterthought. And I think it's a perfect ending to the album. It sounds like John is like completely like shell shocked and devastated about his mother. My mummy's dead. Can't get it through my head. It sends goosebumps. It's absolutely like, just devastatingly cryptic and odd. And I like it. And it fits the mood of the album where he's casting out all his demons and his pain. It's perfect. But it's not a great song, but Hello, Darren Gamble. I like what Wes says here. After listening to the original mixes for 50 plus years, the newer mixes will always just be a novelty after only a few listens. I agree. I mean, for me personally, that is. But a lot of people have said, "Oh, this new Revolver album, that's going to be my go-to version. Oh, the new Pepper, that's my go-to. The White Album, the new one is my go-to." Fine, go to it. Greatest artists of all time in musical history: Elvis, the Beatles, Bob Marley, and Michael Jackson. Would you agree? No. It depends. Elvis and the Beatles, yes, I agree. Michael Jackson was great in his own right, and Bob Marley, well, he's great too in that reggae area. So yeah, yeah. Well, I agree. I don't know. Yeah, they're all great. All the ones you mentioned are great. Greatest of all time? That's I don't know. Westfield 90 hopes Rubber Soul comes out early. I hate having to wait till the end of the year. I think you'll have to wait. I don't know. I have no knowledge on this. No, you know, clue. They haven't told me anything. But I'm guessing you'd have to wait till the end of the year. I'm thinking that Rubber Soul is going to probably be near the end of the year. Yeah. Well, the album itself was released late in the year anyway. Rubber Soul originally, and we just had Revolver. You to give it at least a year. Hi, Mike Bass. Mike Bass says, "Hi, Joe. During your current Elvis high, are you interested in getting the new movie on Blu-ray? It gets better with repeated viewings." No, I do not. For me, it's going to get worse on repeated viewings. I think I was much too kind to that movie, I think. It was enjoyable to watch, but at the end of the day, I did a lot of reflecting on it, and I thought there's too much stuff there that's just not accurate enough. And I'm sorry, a lot of people nitpick me and they say, "Oh, when you make a movie, a bio movie, you have to take artistic license and dramatic license." Baloney. Elvis's life, along with everybody else's life, is plenty dramatic and interesting on its own. Didn't need any twists and turns and tweaking and stuff like that. And while I think that Austin Butler was good in the role of Elvis, I just think that I don't have any desire to see the movie again. And I think when I did my review of it, I think I was a little too kind to it. So. And yes, I do like Simon and Garfunkel. Yes, I like Simon and Garfunkel. Uh, yeah. Yes, Edie Brickell we're talking about. Yes, yes. Ghost of a Dog. I hear a lot of good things about Ghost of a Dog. That's something called the Ultimate Collection. If there's an Ultimate Collection, I might try that out. And that's another good example. We talked earlier, I think it was Sam St. John, who asked me, what's the criteria for what vinyl I keep or not? And I think like Edie Brickell is another good example. I don't think I have the vinyl and the CD. I'm thinking I only need the CD for Edie Brickell. I like that with a lot of, I think, 80s artists beyond and beyond, you know. One thing you wrote about Elvis that you don't believe is that he shot the TV. Do you believe it? It sounds too ridiculous to me. Now, I'm not an Elvis expert, but I'm almost 100% positive that it is true that Elvis shot the TV out with a gun. I'm pretty sure that's documented. Somebody else let me know who knows Elvis. Yeah, we don't know anything about Sometime in New York City, the box set. It's probably not happening. Edward Growler did not like Tom Hanks as the Colonel and Elvis. They could have found he was all right, I thought, but they could have done better. And I still don't think he sounds like Elvis. I'm sorry, the Colonel. Jeez, I don't think Tom Hanks sounded that accent. I don't know what he was thinking with that. I know people said that that's really the way the Colonel talked, actually. But blah, 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 blah. They could have found a better guy to play the Colonel. And I like Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks is a good actor. I got nothing against Tom Hanks as a person or anything. I just think they could have did better. Rest in peace, Jeff Beck. Yes, I don't make videos about everybody. Only people that either affected me in some way, or either they affected me through their work, or their death in some way affected me. Does that make sense? Like Lisa Marie Presley, obviously, her work didn't affect me any, but I made a rest in peace video because the death was kind of shocking to me, really. And she was Elvis's daughter, only child, only Elvis's only child. In the case of Jeff Beck, I just, he didn't affect me really, and his death didn't shock me or anything. Or again, nothing against him, sometimes I'm not saying that. Not saying this guy that wrote a comment here is suggesting this, but some people have said to me, "Well, why do you make a rest in peace video, obituary video for this person, but not for that person?" Well, that's my decision, you know. Did I listen to the Beatles or Elvis first as a kid? Well, definitely the Beatles. I definitely grew up with listening to the Beatles first. But I know my mother also had some 45s of Elvis. She had Teddy Bears and things like that on 45. So it makes me wonder. I can't say without a doubt that when I was a little kid sitting with my Mickey Mouse phonograph, spinning 45s as a 3 or 4 year old, I can't say that I didn't put on an Elvis 45 first. But obviously the Beatles though were what really got my ear. you know. And I still consider myself a first generation Beatles fan, and I don't say that because I want to be. It drives some people nuts. They say, "Oh, this guy wants to be a first generation fan, and he's a second." I don't care whether I'm a first, second, third, or 43rd generation fan. It does. I'll take whatever it really is. I've always considered myself a second generation fan. Number two, in the 70s. However, someone once told me that it depends what your criteria is. Some people think you can't be a first generation Beatles fan unless you saw them on the Ed Sullivan Show. I don't agree with that. To me, a fan means that you like the Beatles. You like them. You knew of them, and you collected them, or you heard their record. You don't have to collect to be a fan, but you liked them and you knew them. And I liked the Beatles, and I knew of them when they were actually together in the 60s. In 1965, I guess mostly, I was a fan, and I watched the cartoon show. I watched the cartoon show when I was 5 years old, 4 and 5 years old. And I remember to this day seeing them on the TV screen in the living room. And I had their records. I had some of their records, and I liked them. My relatives bought me the records. So if somebody I knew who was older than me said, "You're a first generation fan. And I said, "How do you figure?" I said, "I'm a second generation fan. I'm not a first. Well, how do you figure?" And he told me. He said, "You liked the Beatles. You watched the cartoons. You had the records. You knew who John Paul, George, and Ringo were, and you liked them, and they excited you, and you were a fan when they first were out doing it." So you're right. Anyway, that's a long answer to that one, but it gives a chance for more questions. Do I like the '77 Elvis concert from Rapid City, South Dakota? That's the album Elvis in concert that came out later. That's the one, the CBS. I just watched the CBS special, but I don't know what to say. I don't like hiding from stuff like that. It is what it is. I really wish that Elvis's estate would release more about the end of his life and have him looking like he looked. Stop hiding it. That's what everybody knows. Elvis was overweight and in poor physical condition at the end of his life. That last concert, stop hiding it. Put it out. The right way. I agree. I like the album "Sometime in New York City." I know everybody hates it. Whatever. And it says the music, especially as played by Elephant's Memory, is fantastic. It's funny. I like the way Elephant's Memory sound. I like the sound of that record, the musicianship on that record, "Sometime in New York City." I don't like the way they sounded live at the concert at Madison Square Garden. Yeah, the Beatles cartoon came out in 1967. Well, no, it was out in 66. I think. Anyway, I watched them. Take my word for it, okay? So I was like 4 or 5. I'm pretty sure it was on 66 and 67. Yes, I was a fan before they broke up, exactly. The Beatles cartoons are not out officially on DVD or anything. Who will eventually inherit your collection of music and movies, etc.? The answer to that is, as I always say, I don't care. I'm meaning like is when I'm gone, when I die, I really I can't worry about who's gonna have the collection. The only thing I hope is that the stuff doesn't get junked. I would rather, you know, my whoever survives me, girlfriend, my nephews, etc. I hope that they wind up getting it, even if it goes to a store where somebody can appreciate it. I haven't really given that much thought yet. Like, am I gonna like leave it to my nephew or something like that? The thing is, I just don't think my nephew. Hi, if you're watching, I have two nephews, and a niece. Two nephews and a niece. My nephew Alex. I just don't think he's not into the Beatles that much anymore. He was when he started out, but he branched off to other things. So I don't think he'd be the most appreciative one of the Beatles collection. I think he would, if anything, he would want other stuff. But whatever. I could be wrong. But yeah. So I just want somebody to appreciate it, whoever gets it. But I'm not really concerned too much with it. Yeah, the anniversary of the Red and Blue albums. Yeah, yep, yep. This year is the 50th anniversary. So I saw videos of you from 7 or 8 years ago. You haven't really changed much, except for a little more gray. Well, the reason for that is because I haven't dyed my hair recently. No, I dye the hair. I don't. I'm not ashamed to say it. To me, dyeing your hair, it's just like it's makeup. It's grooming. I call it grooming, and I've been doing that since I started my videos. Yeah, I've been doing that for the 10 years I've been on here. The thing is, I haven't done it lately. That's all. Get rid of this stuff. I see. I got J.D. Thompson. Uh, J.D. Thompson is sending me a private message right now. Well, not for me. It isn't. Farrell McNulty says first generation fan is like when people write first to comment after a YouTube video drop. I mean, I'd be proud to be a first generation fan, but I don't care if people consider me a second generation fan. Fine. But what's the criteria? You got to accept what's the criteria. Some people think you can't be a fan until you're a teenager. You have to be older. You know, whatever. What can I tell you? I was a fan of the Beatles while they were still together in the '60s, and I listened to the music and watched them. So I must be a fan then. The voices of the cartoons were different. The Yellow from Yellow Submarine. That's right, Zachary Hogan. At least I have a full head of hair. That's correct, I do. Yes, indeed. Lots of hair, lots of hair. What's going on, folks? This has been a really interesting and fun chat. Hair discussion notwithstanding. So, it's the last comment I saw. It's about 11 o'clock. All right, it's time actually to stop now. Yeah, I'm gonna cut this off now, folks. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you so much. Uh, I'm reading some comments. Okay, anyway, thank you for being here, everybody. Now, just again to refresh everybody's mind, or if you haven't heard already, this thing that I do here, the Q&A, please be here. If you like this, please try to be here. I'm going to be doing this not every Sunday, but a lot of Sundays, and I'll be doing it at the same time, which is roughly a start at between 9 and 9:30 a.m. Eastern on Sunday. Next Sunday, I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to be doing this next Sunday, the 22nd. I'm going to be skipping it. I'll be going to a record show. You heard right, a record show. And going to a record show. And then the Sunday after, on the 29th, I'll be back here. So again, please keep that in mind. This is going to be a kind of regular thing I'll be doing. This will be my time slot. I'll be doing this on Sunday mornings, somewhere between 9 and 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Please join me in the future. Write it on your calendar. I will not be here next Sunday. I'll be here the 29th. All right, that's the way they look so far. So I thank you all for being here. And I appreciate all your comments as always. Talk soon. Cheers.